Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. I'm standing in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie for the third time. It's not that I'm nervous, no, it's something else. Maybe it's anticipation. Maybe it's the faint hum of nostalgia that's been echoing in my chest ever since the invitation arrived. Our favorite restaurant, La Belle Étoile, was hosting a special night, inviting a renowned singer who would be performing love songs. Not just any love songs, but the ones my wife, Sarah, and I used to listen to when we were young, wrapped up in each other, dreaming of forever. The invitation felt like a sign, a chance to reconnect with those memories. La Belle Étoile isn't just any restaurant to us, it's where we celebrated our first anniversary, where we'd go to escape the world, where the air was always thick with romance and the scent of her favorite dish, coq au vin. It was our place, our sanctuary. So when the invitation arrived, I knew I had to go. I'd surprise Sarah. I wanted to see her face light up when she heard those songs, see her smile in that way that made everything right with the world. The plan was simple. I'd arrive first, find a perfect spot, and then call her, telling her to meet me there. She'd walk in, surprised, and we'd spend the evening wrapped in our memories, in the music that had once been the soundtrack to our lives. The restaurant is just as I remember it, dimly lit with candles flickering on every table, the walls lined with burgundy drapes that give the place an intimate, almost secretive feel. The air is warm, fragrant with the smells of dishes being carefully prepared in the kitchen. I nod to the maitre d', who recognizes me immediately. He leads me to a small table near the stage, a prime spot where the singer will be in clear view. "Will Madam be joining you soon?" he asks with a polite smile as he pulls out my chair. "Yes, I'll call her in just a moment," I reply, my voice steady despite the odd flutter in my chest. I sit down and take in the surroundings, the familiarity of it all both comforting and bittersweet. The lights dim further as the singer steps onto the small stage. She's elegant, with an aura that commands attention even before she sings a single note. The pianist begins to play, and the first few chords strike a chord deep within me. It's our song. The song that played the night we first danced together, the song that became our song. I can almost feel Sarah in my arms, the way we swayed to the music, lost in each other. With a deep breath, I pull out my phone and dial her number. The phone rings once, twice, and then the familiar chime of her ringtone echoes from the table next to mine. My heart skips a beat as I turn my head, my eyes searching, hoping it's just a coincidence. But there she is. Sarah. My wife. She's sitting at the table not 10 feet away, her back to me, but there's no mistaking her. I know her silhouette, the way her hair falls in waves down her back, the slight tilt of her head. But it's not just her. There's a man with her. They're close, too close. His hand is on hers, their fingers intertwined as if they belong together. My stomach lurches as I watch them. The phone in her hand lights up with my name, and I see her glance at it. For a moment, I think she'll answer, that maybe this is all just a misunderstanding. But then she does something that shatters the world I've known, she drops the call. I can't breathe. My hand clenches around the phone as if it's the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. I don't know what to do, what to think. The man leans in, whispering something in her ear, and she laughs. Laughs like she used to with me. Then he leans in further, and they kiss. My stomach twists in knots as I watch them. It's not just a kiss, it's the kind of kiss that speaks of familiarity, of something deeper. The kind of kiss that says this isn't new, that they've done this before. I can feel my pulse pounding in my ears, drowning out the music that once brought so much joy. The singer's voice continues to float through the air, but the words that once filled me with warmth now feel like icy shards piercing through my chest. The melodies that were once a reminder of love and happiness now feel oppressive, suffocating. My hands are trembling, and I have to remind myself to breathe, to not lose control in the middle of the restaurant. I force myself to look away, my eyes focusing on the flickering candle in front of me, its flame struggling against the cool air of the room. I should leave. I should stand up, walk out, and never look back. But I can't move. I'm frozen, stuck in this nightmare that I can't wake up from. After what feels like an eternity, they stand up. I see them gather their things, still wrapped up in each other, oblivious to the world around them, oblivious to me. I don't know what possesses me, but I finally stand up as well, my legs feeling like they belong to someone else. They walk past my table, and for a split second, Sarah's eyes meet mine. There's a flicker of recognition, of shock, but she doesn't stop. She just keeps walking, the man's hand still firmly on the small of her back. The door closes behind them, and I'm left standing alone in the dim light of the restaurant, the singer's voice still crooning out a love song that now feels more like a cruel joke. I sink back into my chair, the weight of everything crashing down on me. I feel hollow, like someone has reached inside me and ripped out everything that once made me whole. My hand shakes as I pick up my glass of wine, trying to steady myself, but it doesn't help. Nothing will help now. I don't know how long I sit there, just staring at the empty chair across from me, the music continuing to play like a soundtrack to my devastation. I think about everything, about our life together, the promises we made, the future we had planned. It all feels like a lie now, like I've been living in a dream that's just turned into a nightmare. The restaurant is starting to empty, the evening winding down, but I can't bring myself to leave. Not yet. Not until I decide what to do next. I know I can't just walk away from this. I can't just let her betrayal go unanswered. She's destroyed the life we built together, and I can't let her get away with it. I clench my fist, the decision forming in my mind like a storm cloud gathering strength. I'll make her pay. I'll make her regret ever betraying me. I'll divorce her, take everything, and leave her with nothing. She doesn't deserve the life we built together, not anymore. As I leave the restaurant, I feel a strange sense of calm wash over me, like the eye of a storm. I've made my decision, and now there's no turning back. Sarah may have shattered our past, but I'm going to destroy her future. And when I'm done, she'll never be able to forget what she's lost. The night is cool as I step outside, the stars twinkling innocently above, unaware of the turmoil below. I walk away from La Belle Étoile, from the memories, from the life that once was. All that's left now is the road ahead, and I know exactly where it's leading me. To a new beginning. A beginning that starts with her end. The next morning, I wake up with a pounding headache, the remnants of last night's wine and emotional turmoil still lingering. I roll over in bed, staring at the empty space beside me. It's cold, lifeless, just like everything between Sarah and me now. The images of her with that man, the way she laughed and kissed him like I never existed, replay in my mind on an endless loop. I can't stay here. The walls of this house feel like they're closing in on me, suffocating me with memories that have now turned bitter. I need to act, to set my plan in motion before I lose my nerve. I get dressed quickly, throwing on the first clothes I find, and head out. The city is just waking up, the streets still quiet, and the morning sun casts long shadows across the pavement. I make my way to my lawyer's office, determined to start the process of cutting Sarah out of my life. Paul Evans has been my lawyer for years. He's a no-nonsense type, sharp as a tack, and not the kind of guy who lets emotions get in the way of business. I know he's the right person for this. I need someone who can be ruthless because I can't afford to be anything less. I walk into his office, the receptionist giving me a curious glance as I tell her I don't have an appointment but need to see Paul immediately. She hesitates for a moment but then nods, sensing the urgency in my voice. A few minutes later, I'm sitting in Paul's office, the city skyline sprawling out behind him through the large window. "Tom," Paul says, looking up from his desk. Didn't expect to see you so early. What's going on? I sit down, feeling the weight of the decision I'm about to make pressing on my shoulders. Paul, I need to file for divorce. He raises an eyebrow, leaning back in his chair. Divorce? I thought you and Sarah were doing fine. What happened? I take a deep breath, the words feeling like poison in my mouth. She's been cheating on me. I caught her last night, with another man, at our favorite restaurant. I'm done, Paul. I want out, and I want to make sure she doesn't get a damn thing. Paul's expression hardens, his professional demeanor kicking in. I'm sorry to hear that, Tom. But if you're serious about this, we need to move fast. California's a community property state, so if we're not careful, she could take half of everything. That's not going to happen, I say, my voice steely. I want you to find every loophole, every trick in the book. I want her to walk away with nothing. She doesn't deserve a dime after what she's done. Paul nods, already jotting down notes. We'll start with a forensic accountant, see if we can trace any assets she might have hidden or any discrepancies in your joint accounts. We'll also file for a restraining order on the marital home, make sure she can't just move back in and claim it as hers. Do whatever it takes, Paul, I say, leaning forward. I don't care how much it costs or how long it takes. I want her out of my life, completely. Paul looks at me for a moment, then nods again. I'll get started on the paperwork today. But, Tom, you need to be prepared for this to get ugly. Divorce is never easy, and if Sarah fights back, this could drag on for a while. I'm ready, I say, my jaw clenched. I'm not letting her win. As I leave Paul's office, there's a grim satisfaction settling over me. The first steps have been taken. I'm going to take back control of my life, no matter what it costs. I spend the next few days in a daze, going through the motions of work, but my mind is elsewhere. I can't stop thinking about Sarah, about what she's doing, who she's with. But I refuse to reach out, to confront her directly. That's what she would want, some kind of emotional showdown where she can twist the knife even deeper. No, I'll fight this battle on my terms. A few days later, I get a call from Paul. Tom, I've got something. You're not going to like it. My heart skips a beat. What is it? Sarah's been funneling money into a separate account for the last 6 months. We found it during the forensic audit. She's been preparing for this, Tom. Looks like she's been planning to leave you for a while. The anger I've been holding back erupts like a volcano. That bitch, I hiss through gritted teeth. She's been playing me this whole time. There's more, Paul continues, his voice calm, professional. The guy she's with, his name is Michael Whitman. He's a real estate developer, divorced, no kids. From what we can tell, they've been seeing each other for almost a year. The room spins for a moment as the full weight of Paul's words sinks in. A year. She's been living a double life for a year, right under my nose. Tom, Paul's voice cuts through my thoughts, we can use this. If we can prove she was unfaithful, it could help your case, especially if she's been using marital assets to fund this relationship. I take a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Do whatever you need to, Paul. I want her destroyed. After I hang up, I feel a strange sense of calm wash over me. The storm inside me has subsided, leaving a cold, calculated resolve. I know what I have to do. The next few weeks are a blur of meetings with Paul, gathering evidence, and trying to keep up the appearance of normalcy at work. I barely sleep, my mind constantly racing with thoughts of Sarah, of Michael, of how I'm going to make them both pay. One evening, as I'm leaving the office late, I run into an old friend, Mark Daniels. We haven't spoken in years, not since college, but seeing him now feels like fate. Tom. Is that you? Mark says, his face lighting up as he recognizes me. Man, it's been ages. How've you been? I force a smile, shaking his hand. Mark, it's been too long. I've been better, to be honest. He gives me a curious look. What's going on? You look like you've been through the ringer. I hesitate for a moment, but then decide to tell him. Mark's always been a good friend, and right now, I could use someone on my side. I briefly explain what's been happening, leaving out some of the more personal details, but giving him enough to understand. Jesus, Tom, Mark says, his voice filled with genuine concern. That's rough. Listen, if you need anything at all, you let me know. I've got some connections, people who can help if things get complicated. I raise an eyebrow. What kind of connections? Mark leans in slightly, lowering his voice. Let's just say they're the kind of people who can make problems disappear. Not literally, of course, but they can make life very difficult for anyone who crosses you. I nod slowly, considering his offer. I appreciate that, Mark. I might just take you up on that. We exchange numbers, and as I walk away, I can't help but feel a new sense of power. I'm not alone in this. I have resources, allies, and a burning desire for revenge that's growing stronger by the day. The next time I see Sarah is in the courtroom, a month later. She looks different, colder, more distant, like a stranger. She doesn't meet my eyes as we sit on opposite sides of the room, our lawyers exchanging tense words. The judge calls the session to order, and the battle begins in earnest. Sarah's lawyer, a slick, sharp-eyed woman named Linda, tries to paint me as the villain, as a controlling, neglectful husband who pushed Sarah away. But Paul is ready for her, tearing apart their arguments with a calm precision that leaves no room for doubt. As the session drags on, I watch Sarah closely, trying to gauge her reactions. But she's a closed book, her face betraying nothing. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, is gone. All that's left is this cold, calculating person sitting across from me. When the session ends, the judge sets a date for the next hearing, and we're dismissed. I step outside, the fresh air hitting me like a slap in the face. Sarah is talking to Linda, her expression serious, and then she turns to walk away, not even sparing me a glance. Tom, Paul says, coming up beside me, we're in for a fight, but we've got a strong case. We'll get through this. I nod, my eyes still on Sarah as she disappears into the crowd. I know, Paul. And when this is over, she'll regret ever crossing me. As I walk away from the courthouse, I pull out my phone and text Mark. I'm in, I type, hitting send before I can second-guess myself. The wheels are in motion, and there's no turning back now. Sarah has started a war, and I'm going to finish it. Whatever it takes. I arrive at the small, dimly lit bar that Mark told me to meet him at. The place is far from where anyone who knows me would be, tucked away in a part of town I wouldn't normally venture into. It's the kind of place where the shadows seem to linger longer, and the patrons keep to themselves, each lost in their own world of regrets and misdeeds. As I push open the heavy door, I spot Mark at a corner table, nursing a drink. He looks up and gives me a nod as I approach. I can tell he's already a few drinks in, but his eyes are sharp, alert. Tom, over here, he calls out, waving me over. I slide into the seat across from him, trying to ignore the knot of tension in my stomach. This isn't me. I'm a successful businessman, not someone who makes shady deals in dark bars. But desperation has a way of pushing people to places they never thought they'd go. Mark leans back, taking a sip of his drink before setting it down. Glad you came, Tom. I've been thinking about your situation, and I've got someone you should meet. I raise an eyebrow, trying to keep my voice steady. Who? Mark glances around the room before leaning in closer. His name is Tony. He's Well, let's just say he's an expert in making things difficult for people who need to be taught a lesson. Nothing illegal, of course, he adds quickly, seeing the concern on my face. But he knows how to apply pressure in ways that make people wish they'd never crossed you. I take a deep breath, trying to push aside the doubts clawing at the back of my mind. What kind of pressure are we talking about? Mark smirks, his eyes glinting in the low light. Depends on what you want, Tom. Do you want to scare her? Ruin her reputation? Make her new boyfriend disappear for a while? Tony's got connections. He can make things happen that most people wouldn't even consider. I feel a chill run down my spine, but I force myself to nod. I just want her to pay, Mark. I want her to know what it feels like to have everything taken from her, just like she's trying to do to me. Mark's expression softens slightly. I get it, man. Betrayal like that cuts deep. But you need to be sure about this. Once Tony gets involved, there's no going back. Things can spiral out of control fast. I hesitate, the weight of what I'm about to do pressing down on me. But then I remember Sarah's laugh as she kissed that man, the way she looked through me in the courtroom like I was nothing. The anger flares up again, burning away the last remnants of doubt. I'm sure, I say, my voice hardening. Let's do it. Mark nods, satisfied with my resolve. All right. I'll set up a meeting with Tony. He's a busy guy, but I'll make sure he can see you soon. Just be ready for whatever he asks. This isn't charity work, Tony expects payment, and not just in money. What does he want? I ask, my curiosity piqued. Mark shrugs. Depends on the job. Sometimes it's favors, sometimes it's connections. But don't worry, if you're serious, I'll help you through it. We finish our drinks in silence, the reality of what I'm getting myself into settling over me like a dark cloud. I leave the bar feeling both exhilarated and terrified. This is a path I can't turn back from, and the stakes are only getting higher. A few days later, Mark calls me to let me know that the meeting with Tony is set. He gives me the address of a warehouse on the outskirts of town, another place far removed from the world I'm used to. The whole thing feels surreal, like I'm living someone else's life, but there's no backing out now. When I arrive at the warehouse, I'm greeted by a tall, imposing man in a black coat. He doesn't introduce himself, just gives me a curt nod and gestures for me to follow him inside. The interior of the warehouse is sparse, with a few crates and an old, beat-up couch in the center of the room. Tony is sitting on the couch, a cigarette dangling from his lips as he watches me with a casual, assessing gaze. Tom, right? Tony says, exhaling a cloud of smoke. Mark's told me about your situation. Have a seat. I sit down on the edge of the couch, feeling like a student called into the principal's office. Tony's presence is overwhelming, a mix of calm authority and underlying menace that makes it clear he's not someone to mess with. So, Tony begins, flicking ash from his cigarette, you've got a problem, and you want me to help you solve it. What exactly are you looking for? I clear my throat, trying to steady my nerves. I want my wife to suffer for what she's done. I want her to feel the same pain she's caused me. I don't care how, as long as she ends up with nothing. Tony nods slowly, considering my words. And her new boyfriend? You want him in on this too? I hesitate for a moment, but then nod. Yes. He's part of the reason all of this is happening. He deserves to pay as much as she does. Tony takes another drag of his cigarette, his eyes narrowing slightly. You're asking for a lot, Tom. This isn't just about ruining someone's life, it's about taking everything from them. Are you sure you're ready for what that entails? I meet his gaze, feeling the anger simmering just beneath the surface. I'm ready. Just tell me what needs to be done. Tony smiles, a slow, predatory grin that sends a shiver down my spine. All right then. We'll start by putting pressure on her work. She's a real estate agent, right? We'll spread some rumors, maybe sabotage a few deals. Make her reputation tank. As for the boyfriend, Michael, we can dig up dirt on him, maybe something that'll make his business partners think twice about working with him. Do whatever it takes, I say, my voice steady. I want them to feel like their whole world is falling apart. Tony nods, his expression serious. This kind of job isn't cheap, Tom. But Mark's vouched for you, so I'm willing to make a deal. I'll need a favor from you down the line, something that'll require your expertise. You good with that? I swallow hard, but nod. I'm good with it. Good, Tony says, standing up and extending a hand. Then we're in business. I shake his hand, the grip firm and cold. As I leave the warehouse, I feel a strange mix of exhilaration and dread. The deal is done. There's no turning back now. The next few weeks are a whirlwind. Tony's men move fast, spreading rumors about Sarah at her workplace, leaving anonymous tips that she's been involved in shady deals. I hear through the grapevine that she's losing clients, that her colleagues are starting to distance themselves from her. Every time I get an update, I feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. Michael isn't spared either. Tony digs up some dirt on his past, an old scandal involving a failed project that lost investors a lot of money. It's nothing illegal, but it's enough to cast doubt on his reputation. Soon, his business starts to suffer too, and I hear whispers that he's struggling to keep his investors from pulling out. It's working. I'm winning. But the victory is bittersweet. Every time I hear about Sarah's struggles, I feel a pang of something, guilt, maybe? Regret? But I push it aside. This is what she deserves. This is what they both deserve. One evening, as I'm sitting at home, my phone rings. It's Mark. Tom, we've got a problem, he says, his voice tense. My heart skips a beat. What kind of problem? Sarah knows, Mark says, the word sending a jolt of fear through me. She's figured out that someone's been sabotaging her, and she's hired a private investigator. He's already sniffing around Tony's guys. We need to act fast before this blows up in our faces. Panic surges through me. This wasn't supposed to happen. What do we do? Mark is silent for a moment, then he sighs. I'll talk to Tony. We might need to escalate things, make sure the investigator backs off. But it's risky, Tom. If this goes wrong. I know what he's implying, but I don't care. I'm too deep into this now. There's no backing out, no second thoughts. Do whatever it takes, Mark. I can't afford to lose now. As I hang up, the reality of the situation crashes down on me. The lines I've crossed, the people I've involved, the danger I'm now in, it's all spiraling out of control. But there's no stopping it. I've started something that can't be undone, and all I can do is see it through to the end, no matter the cost. And as I sit there, alone in the dark, I can't help but wonder, when this is all over, will there be anything left of the man I used to be? The rain pours down in sheets as I sit alone in my car, parked across the street from Sarah's apartment. The windshield wipers struggle to keep up, creating a rhythmic thud that matches the pounding in my chest. It's been weeks since I last saw her, weeks filled with chaos and escalating tensions. Tony's methods have become increasingly aggressive, and now, everything is unraveling faster than I can control. My phone buzzes on the passenger seat, the screen illuminating with Mark's name. I hesitate before answering, dreading the news he might have. Mark, what's happening? I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. It's bad, Tom, he replies, his voice strained. Tony's guys went too far. Michael was attacked last night outside his office. He's in the hospital. I feel a cold knot tighten in my stomach. This wasn't part of the plan. Attacked? I didn't ask for that, Mark. I just wanted to make their lives difficult, not violence. I know, Mark sighs. But Tony decided to take matters into his own hands. And it gets worse. The police are involved now, and they're starting to connect the dots. Your name could come up. Panic surges through me. What do you mean? How could they link this back to me? Sarah's private investigator dug deep, Mark explains. He found connections between you, me, and Tony. It's only a matter of time before the police come knocking. I run a hand through my hair, rain tapping loudly on the car roof. This is a disaster. What do I do? Meet with Sarah, Mark suggests after a pause. Talk to her. Maybe you can fix this before it gets any worse. I scoff, anger flaring up. After everything she's done. Why should I be the one to fix it? Because you're in deep trouble, Tom, Mark snaps back. Swallow your pride before it swallows you whole. I hang up without responding, frustration boiling inside me. Meeting with Sarah is the last thing I want to do, but Mark's right. I need to end this before it destroys me. Summoning my courage, I step out into the rain, pulling my coat tight around me as I cross the street. My shoes splash through puddles, each step heavier than the last. I reach her building and buzz up to her apartment. There's a long pause before her voice crackles through the intercom. Who is it? It's Tom, I say, trying to keep my voice calm. We need to talk. Another pause. I half expect her to refuse, but then the door buzzes open. I take the elevator up, my heart pounding louder with each floor it ascends. When the doors open, Sarah is waiting in the hallway, her arms crossed and eyes wary. She looks tired, dark circles under her eyes and her usual composed demeanor frazzled. What do you want, Tom? She asks, her voice cold. We need to talk, I repeat, stepping towards her. About everything. She studies me for a moment before nodding and leading me into her apartment. It's the same as I remember, yet it feels foreign, like I'm walking into a stranger's home. We sit across from each other at the small kitchen table, the sound of rain filling the uncomfortable silence between us. Talk, she says curtly. I take a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. I know about the private investigator. I know you suspect someone has been sabotaging you and Michael. Her eyes flash with anger. Suspect? I know it, Tom. And I know you're behind it. I flinch at her accusation but try to remain composed. Why would you think that? She laughs bitterly. Because who else would want to ruin my life? You've always been vindictive. Vindictive? I echo, my own anger rising. You cheated on me, Sarah. You destroyed our marriage. I had every right to be angry. Her gaze hardens. Is that what you think happened? That I just woke up one day and decided to betray you? That's what it looked like from where I was standing, I retort. She shakes her head, tears glistening in her eyes. You were never there, Tom. Always working, always too busy for me. I was alone in our marriage long before Michael came along. I feel a pang of guilt but push it aside. So that justifies cheating. Sneaking around behind my back for a year. She looks down, her voice softer. I tried talking to you, tried to make you see how unhappy I was. But you never listened. Michael was there for me when you weren't. The room falls silent, the weight of her words hanging heavily between us. Maybe she's right. Maybe I wasn't the husband I should have been. But does that excuse everything that's happened? I sigh, rubbing my temples. Look, this has all gotten out of hand. Michael's in the hospital, the police are involved. We need to find a way to end this mess. She looks up sharply. You did this, Tom. You and whoever you're working with. You need to take responsibility. Before I can respond, there's a sudden, loud knock on the door. We both jump, exchanging wary glances. Are you expecting someone? I ask. She shakes her head, standing up cautiously and moving towards the door. As she opens it, 2 police officers stand on the threshold, their expressions stern. Sarah Bennett? One of them asks. Yes, she replies nervously. We're Detectives Ross and Miller. We're investigating the assault on Michael Whitman. We have some questions we'd like to ask. Sarah glances back at me, fear evident in her eyes. The detective follows her gaze, his eyes narrowing as he looks at me. And you are? I stand up, trying to appear calm. Tom Bennett. The detectives exchange a look before Ross speaks again. Mind if we come in? Sarah nods mutely, stepping aside to let them enter. My heart races as they walk into the room, the atmosphere growing even tenser. Detective Miller pulls out a notebook, eyeing me carefully. Mr. Bennett, were you aware that Mr. Whitman was attacked last night? I clear my throat. I heard about it. Where were you last night around 9 p.m., he asks pointedly. At home, I reply, trying to keep my voice steady. Can anyone verify that? I hesitate, knowing I was alone. No, I was by myself. Detective Ross steps forward, his gaze piercing. We've received information linking you to known associates who may have been involved in orchestrating this attack. Care to explain? Panic surges through me. How did they find out so quickly? I glance at Sarah, who looks equally shocked. I don't know what you're talking about, I say weakly. Ross smirks slightly. We have witnesses and evidence suggesting otherwise. We'd like you to come down to the station for further questioning. My mind spins as the reality sinks in. This is it. Everything is collapsing around me. Before I can respond, Sarah speaks up, her voice trembling. Officers, I had no idea Tom was involved. I've been trying to find out who's been sabotaging my life, but I never imagined. Her voice trails off as tears spill down her cheeks. Seeing her so vulnerable stirs something inside me, a deep regret and shame for what I've done. I take a shaky breath and look back at the detectives. I'll come with you. As they move to escort me out, I turn to Sarah one last time. I'm sorry, I whisper, meaning it more than I ever have. She meets my gaze, pain and anger swirling in her eyes. It's too late, Tom. The ride to the police station is a blur. I'm processed, questioned, and eventually charged with conspiracy and harassment. Mark is arrested shortly after, and Tony disappears without a trace, leaving me to face the consequences alone. Months pass as the legal proceedings drag on. I lose my job, my reputation tarnished beyond repair. In the end, I'm sentenced to community service and probation, narrowly avoiding jail time thanks to a good lawyer and a clean record. One day, after fulfilling my community service hours, I find myself standing outside La Belle Étoile, the restaurant where it all began. The memories flood back, both good and bad, and I feel a profound sense of loss. As I turn to leave, I spot Sarah walking down the street, alone. She sees me and pauses, uncertainty flickering across her face. I muster the courage to approach her. Sarah. She nods curtly. Tom. We stand there awkwardly, the weight of everything unsaid heavy between us. Finally, I speak. How's Michael? Her expression softens slightly. He's recovering. We ended things. Too much damage done. I'm sorry for everything, I say sincerely. I let my anger consume me, and I hurt you more than you deserved. She studies me for a moment before replying. And I'm sorry for my part in all this. I should have been honest with you from the start. We fall silent, the sounds of the city surrounding us. There's nothing left to say, no way to mend what's been broken. Goodbye, Tom, she finally says, turning to walk away. Goodbye, Sarah, I reply, watching as she disappears into the crowd, leaving me alone with the remnants of our shattered lives. As I walk away from the restaurant, I realize that vengeance has only brought me misery. In trying to destroy her, I ended up destroying myself. Now, all that's left is to pick up the pieces and try to rebuild, learning from the mistakes that cost me everything. The rain starts to fall again, washing over me as I walk into the uncertain future, alone but wiser. The love songs that once bound us have faded into echoes of a past that can never be reclaimed. And perhaps that's for the best.